I think you're talking about the view out in my window where my beach studio is. It's a view of the ocean, and there's some trees that are in front of the ocean. And so I get this really magical, brilliant light on the water that kind of reflects into the interior as a really strong sunlight, but then the reflection on the water actually bounces the light around also. And that's where you get those little sunspots, which is kind of a pattern thing that I have never used before, and I just love it. It's just really kind of magical, and somehow the dog, which is Victor, he's a vintage RCA Victor dog. Something about the little spots made me think of dogs and balls, and I don't know, it was just kind of playful, and it seemed to really fit the character of it and kind of lighten things up and give it atmosphere. And I found it just kind of refreshing to take my still life into the world of natural light. Usually I have used spotlights, interior spotlights, although there's a tiny bit of natural light in some of the interior ones where I have a skylight coming in. That's very late afternoon, August sunlight, summer light, not moonlight, but it's, like I was saying, just that magical reflective light you get from the water coming in, because this window is fairly close to the ocean. And so it's really magical. And in my studio, I do have a skylight that was giving me some light on the long painting called Histories. And I use also a full spectrum artificial light, but it's full spectrum like natural light with that. And I tend to photograph these still lifes many, many, many times. And so when the light does change, I get a whole different set of shadows and reflections. So that makes it very interesting. And I choose from those as well. Yes, I do. I love reproducing the object from another viewpoint. That is very interesting and kind of, well, it's magical, I think, to see something from another point of view. And the reflections also reflect parts of the world that's not in the still life, like my studio, the world around the still life. So it's a way of kind of enriching the environment and bringing even more into it, another space. It just ups the ante. Well, I would say they're all paintings that I admire, yes. Whether they're my absolute favorite, I'm not sure, because sometimes you can't find a reproduction of your absolute favorite painting. But I go to museums, which I've been doing since I was, a teenager, and I always buy the cards and the posters and the art books, and so I have a whole treasure trove of reproductions that I use. And they get better and better. Chronologically, the color quality is better, and sometimes I have a painting in different versions, and the colors can be completely different based on the reproductions. So I take great liberties. Well, I guess that is an inherent message, because I learn so much from looking at the reproductions. When you're in a museum, if you're lucky, you get a few minutes by yourself to look at a painting. And sometimes there's glare because the painting's hung very high and it's varnished. So it's very hard to study a painting in that situation. So I think reproductions are very, very important way to see art of the world. Oh, that painting is just a great painting. It's such a strong, dark light, black shape. I love Manet's paintings, and the fact that she is a painter, a woman painter. I always try to bring in women that are painting, and a lot of images that I use in the cards are women. It's kind of interesting historically how women fit in. And I just think we learn so much from art history. Special. Well, some are more special than others. For instance, the dog, Victor, was my brother's, and he passed away when he was younger, and I inherited it, and so it's very special. And yeah, I think some objects you have personal experiences with, and you don't ever really lose that. And as I've been borrowing objects from people, they have a whole history of personal experience with those objects that I don't experience. But, you know, being a still life painter, I know people see my work in many different ways, and I have no control over that, you know, what they bring to it. But I think objects have a life of their own. Well, in some ways it's probably easier because I know the proportions, but when I change the lighting and I change, say if it's a transparent object and there are things behind it, it just creates a whole new set of problems to deal with. And it makes it interesting. So I don't get bored painting the same objects, really. I'm not quite like Morandi. Giorgio Morandi had supposedly one little closet, and you see the same shapes of bottles in his paintings over and over again, and they're fabulous. He didn't ever get tired of them. Oh, well, the eyes might, of the dog, watching me walk around the room. Anything figurative might, but not generally. They don't follow me. Well, I would say I know them way better after I paint them, yes. Sometimes you think you know what something looks like, and then you paint, when I'm painting, because I paint so much detail, I have to really understand, you know, the geometry of the pattern, if there's a pattern there, and the proportions, and yeah, I just know it so much better. Because you don't really look at things, you glance at things and your mind tells you you know what it looks like, but you really don't until you study it. So it's the drawing on the right side of the brain idea, you know. Your mind makes up a lot of what you see until you really look at it, I think.